Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Julie Boyer, and today I have a very special guest. Please welcome my friend Christian.
Hello, Julie. Happy to be here.
I am very excited for this. So, Christian and I met actually through our community on Twitch, and this is the first time I've had a friend from that community join me on the podcast. So, most of you will probably know him through his gamer tag, which is HaterzMD, and I will probably call him Haterz throughout this interview. But he does have a life outside of video game and Twitch streaming, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to connect with him today, because I love his story and I want to learn more about it, and I wanted to share it with you on the podcast. So Christian is a family medicine physician who is no longer doing clinical practice, but he has transitioned to working in the pharmaceutical industry, helping to develop different medicines. And I thought, what an interesting transition to do, especially since there's a lot of schooling and education that goes into becoming a doctor. And I was really curious to hear about that. Not only that, Christian shared with me privately before he was sharing this on his stream about some of the personal development work that he's done, that he's really added to some of the work he's doing on Twitch. So I was really intrigued to hear a little bit more about your story. So Haterz, if you wouldn't mind telling me a little bit about that part of your story, kind of before you got into streaming.
Sure. Happy to tell it. So I would say that my first interest in the medical world was from childhood. My father is a physician. Mother is a nurse, and they actually met working in a hospital 50 some years ago. And so I always grew up around it, and I have really idolized my father. And during schooling, I felt that I had always had a knack for mathematics, the natural sciences, and I felt growing up that going into medicine was a natural fit for me. But the one thing that I'll say as I started getting nearer to medical school is that while I had the family background, kind of like a sciencey brain, I never actually thought about what it might be like being a practicing physician. I didn't actually put myself in the shoes of what that's going to be like on a day-to-day basis. And that kind of leads the foundation for what comes next. So going into medical school, it's kind of split into half. So 2 years are all classwork years next to our clinical years. So you are mainly hospital based. And interestingly, medical school is not about how smart you are or not. It's a grind. It's actually not unlike streaming and trying to become a partner. It's a true grind. But the main point is that after I got into the clinical portions, I actually thought about if I had wanted to truly finish, if I was actually interested, if this was going to happen. I have a very difficult time quitting. Sometimes that works out very well in certain aspects of life and sometimes not, but I can be very stubborn. I just thought, you have put forth lots and lots of work in, you have done this, you are seeing it through, and then also seeing it through a residency. So I only practiced for approximately 4 years, maybe slightly, yes. And then I just wasn't happy doing it. I felt that I was doing an excellent service, but I didn't feel like I was utilizing my best skills, which
Okay. So a bit of a technology mishap there. Christian was totally frozen, so I paused the recording. So as we get back into where you were in your story, you were talking about the fact that you were looking at how really to best use your personal skill sets. So maybe not as a practicing physician. So I feel like we were at a bit of cliffhanger. So kind of what happened next?
Sure. Yeah. So I had felt, that my better skills are more on the nerdy kind of sciencey side, looking at lots of data and making it an interpretation, a conclusion after that. And I had learned that there's a group of people who are just like me, actually, and there's quite a few of them. That is practicing physicians who want to transition in the non-clinical world. Some of them might work at a health plan, but the most popular industry is the pharmaceutical industry. And then drawing more parallels into Twitch type of things. There's lots of networking that has to go on. It's just not through Twitter and Discord. It's mainly through LinkedIn. But that's how it happens. And that's a grind in itself. I learned how to market myself, CV's got to be a certain way and cover letters got to be a certain way. You have to interview a certain way. And that actually took maybe a year and a half worth of learning, applications to over 100 jobs, and not getting anything until I finally broke in, maybe like a year and a half ago, or 2 or so years ago now.
Yeah. I just have to say that one more time. You said 100 job applications?
Yeah, there's actually probably more. I 100 at the time that I started logging them in a spreadsheet, because and I did this so that I could systematically keep track of where I, quote, failed in the process and what I think that I could have done better in that particular instance. And I think that helped me kind of move along.
That's incredible that you actually took the time to say, this didn't work out. What can I do better? That's what, I guess in a way, that's what you do in scientific theory and in testing hypothesis, right? Why didn't it work this time? What can I do better? So
Sure.
you literally applied scientific theory to your own life in order to get where you wanted to go. I have never heard that before. That is absolutely amazing. I knew there was some good nuggets in this
Well,
story.
to be honest with you, Julie, too, it was also therapeutic in a sense, because my wife knows about the job hunt and all of these kind of things and your personal brand. And after getting really mad, so many times, I felt like it was not only beneficial to keep track of where you could have done better, but we would also kind of laugh at it, like, okay, chalk up another one on the spreadsheet or something of that nature. And while we weren't really celebrating it, I felt like that was our way of just kind of blowing off steam and just saying, hey, you did your absolute best. This is where we think that you can move on forward. And, drawing more and more parallels into Twitch, I do the same thing on my streams. I always kind of think about that. But yeah, but it was beneficial, and also like a therapeutic tool.
Good for you. That's something I hope that our listeners take to heart, especially when you are working towards a goal and you're not getting there, it's like looking at what didn't work, what did work, right? Because every little step hopefully is getting you closer. I mean, you and I both know if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and not getting any results, that's the definition of insanity.
Yep.
So by looking at our own things and getting better every time, it's like I recommended, I did a tweet, just a few tips for new Twitch streamers is to go back and look at your own
Saw that.
VOD and say, when
Right.
I watch myself, and it's the same thing. I mean, my profession in network marketing, the question you always want to ask yourself is like, do I want to be on my own team? Right? Like all these things.
Sure.
Like if you're not looking back and doing the self-reflection, how does that work? So I'm curious about, because there's this book you shared with me, and I'm wondering if this book had anything to do with this. Did you read the book before you started this journey, or tell us about the book? Because I think that's a really important part of your story.
Sure. So the book, which I actually have handy here, is called 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. I just want to check the copyright date quickly, because this was maybe like a decade ago now, and where this helped me and what prompted me to even really think about it was having a speech impediment, stuttering. I felt that there came a point where I was just really, for lack of a better phrase, tired of it. Not that because I had been through therapy many times, and you just have to keep on practicing and practicing and practicing. There's a technique, and then there's also a self-image portion, right? And how you feel about yourself, and being comfortable in your own skin. And there was a point there, like it was happening during medical school. Childhood is obviously, very difficult. Sometimes children are kind of nasty, especially if they don't fully understand exactly what is going on, or there's all kinds of judgments made before somebody even really knows you. So I just was looking for resources that can help me on the self-image side, and how I think of myself. And this book, 13 Things that mentally strong people don't do, will teach you things like not to expect results immediately, not to be jealous of the success of other people. So,
wait, don't go any further.
Sure.
That one right there is like the number one thing I think that gets in the way for most people on Twitch who are new streamers.
Sure. Twitch,
right?
And like in the job hunt too.
I guess in the job hunt, yeah.
I have a small group of buddies. Some of them would get success, some of them not, and it's very much like saying, well, this Twitch person did this and this one did that, but I'm just as good. Like the same exact things happening, but the point is that what it did was helped me to overcome the resentment that I felt that I was owed the opportunity, or I was owed being born with normal speech, when one of the principles in that book also is that the world doesn't owe you anything. It owes you nothing. You go and you take what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't deserve to necessarily, like, I felt that, well, not to use the old adage, but you play the hand that you are dealt. And I used those principles, and not that I'm perfect at it, because I have to go back at it and look, especially if I'm frustrated over something or something happens. I would go back and I'll say, well, are you doing this? Are you doing this? You know, what happened in this? You had like a verbal interaction with you know, so and so, and it went very, very poorly, like not your average. What happened there? That's kind of smaller scale things, but the bigger scale is that Amy Morin book helped me to become comfortable in my own skin, and that if you are genuine, that people will accept you no matter what kind of a disability or kind of a imperfection that you might have. And one last point there is that I also accepted that all of us have difficulties that we go through. Mine just is on my sleeve, right? The person who I am talking to may have a whole slew of other issues that they were born with that I'm never going to hear about because I'm not in that person's personal life, right? And I just started counting my own blessings, because I was actually born very, very blessed, and I'm blessed to have a great wife, great pets, and great family. And I just started being grateful for the things that I do have, and not hating life because I was born with a disability.
This is why I asked you to be on the podcast. This is it right here, because people have so many reasons for why they're not successful, and why they're not going to do something, and why I can't stream, and why I can't do a Facebook Live, and why I can't do all of these things. And like you said, you stutter, and it's obvious, right? You can't hide it. It doesn't go away. It doesn't matter. Like, some days it's better than others, as you told me, depending on your focus or how tired you are, it will change, but it's never going to go away. But you did the work to say, that is part of who I am, and I'm going to still go for my goals and dreams no matter what. And I think the fact that you stream, not only do you stream, so if you're not familiar with what streaming is, because a lot of my community, I mean, some of my community definitely has come from our Twitch family, but a lot of my community has no idea what we're talking about when we do these things about Twitch, right? When you stream, you are live in front of people playing a video game, or maybe talking, depending on what you do in your time. But you, Haterz, you have a camera on as well. So not only are you showing your face, you're speaking with people for 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes, and you're doing it. So my question is, with all of these things that you have to overcome, like, why would you get into streaming? It seems like it would be so challenging, but you're doing so well in it. So tell me, I want to hear that story. Like, why did you choose to get into streaming?
Yeah, it is definitely challenging. Before I get into the why, I just want to make like an interesting point though. It's actually more difficult on well, I won't speak for all people that stutter, but for me, it really takes all of my mental focus to concentrate on how I am talking. And streaming is actually more difficult than giving a work presentation or something of that nature, because it's only me and I'm focusing on my points. Streaming, there is stimulation from everywhere. And that makes it more difficult. And lots of people think, well, you're just playing a video game. It's not that easy. But the why the transition from practice into pharmaceuticals actually was the big thing that made this happen, because my first position in the pharmaceutical world, it was a work at home job. And if that didn't happen, then there would have been much less of a chance that I would have the opportunity to work and lurk, as I call it, or to, something of that nature. You can have them on. And it so happened that with the COVID world, my job now isn't technically work at home, but I am at home due to COVID. So I have been working at home for maybe 2 or so years now. That's the foundation, basically. That's what makes it possible for the time being. So what got me into it? My brother-in-law, many years ago said, "You would love Borderlands 2. You should play it." I just was doing other things and never played it. And then Borderlands 3 dropped, and I was like, "Well, you missed Borderlands 2. Let's get into Borderlands 3." Started playing it and just had like no idea what was really going on. And I don't like being bad at anything, so I liked to look up videos and on builds and other things. And the first person that caught my attention was Moxie in the Twitch world. And so I just really started following Moxie and following him on Twitch. Through Moxie, I met many other streamers, like your husband, for instance. He has been a big inspiration also, and you're a great streamer too. I met you later in the streaming life, but I would say it was mostly Moxie that got me interested. And I was thinking, well, you have the time now because you're at home, that you can balance this. And keep in mind, this was after nine months of not just lurking in streams. I would actively chat. Yeah. But I saw the path that lots of people were taking as they would try to be a better streamer, whether you want to get into the partner status, if you want to be on the content and creator team. I just kind of started knowing how the business works, or learning about how it works. And I was like, I don't see any reason why you can't do this too. And I think that it would be really fun. And my first stream was actually, I didn't have the intention of it being a long-term thing. I didn't have the expectations of a streaming mic and a stream deck and a green screen and all of these things. I didn't have a camera. I was just messing around. And I was like, whoa, yeah, like it is like an effort, in the sense that I have to really focus on my speech, because the speech thing is that if it gets really bad, it's not the embarrassment, but the physical stress that it creates, like the tension. You actually get some like physical feelings of like exhaustion, almost like I've been in like a boxing match or something, when I'm just sitting there talking, right? Like, and so I was like, you just have to get through the initial hurdle of being nervous. You have done this millions of times. You have been through medical school. You give presentations all the time. Go for it. And then I actually really, really like it now, to the point where I make an effort to lose a couple hours of sleep if I have to, and because I just love it. And but the first inspiration was Moxie, and then a whole slew of others that I saw that really put forth great efforts and make the game really, really fun. That was how I got started, and they have helped me establish future goals also.
And you're having a good time, and I can totally see that, and I love it. And that's what's fun, is there have been a lot of people who have picked up Twitch streaming because of COVID for so many different reasons. Like you said, some people are working from home. Some people, just like me, I just totally got sucked in, and I just go and stream because I'm a goof. And it's like this side of me that doesn't really come out anywhere else, but it is part of who I am. And I let my Twitch persona, Mrs. Wolf, because my husband's Psychotic Wolf, if you've listened to our previous podcast, the Psychotic Wolf, So I became Mrs. Wolf, and I kind of like you dabbled in the community, not for as long, but I was like in the chats and I was, visiting, and then I'd pop in on my husband's stream a little bit and play. And I really found this joy and this enjoyment in doing the streaming. And like you said, so it's interesting that you brought up about the physical exhaustion. That's even more so for you, because I do find that around the 3-hour mark, it's very exhausting. And I just didn't even think of how much more exhausting it would be if you're stuttering, because of the physical reaction that your body has when you're doing that. So that's interesting to note. And it's also interesting that to have this so much respect for what's going on the other side, right? Like streaming might seem like it's not that difficult, but like you said, there's so many factors in it. There's the chat going on. There's alerts happening. You're playing the game. And if you're like me and you're like a mediocre game player sometimes, I think that's why my stream is so funny, because I can't figure it out. But I want to just talk about something that you're doing in your stream, though, that you've just started doing, but I think is clever and I really like it. So you started this thing called House Calls with HaterzMD. What is that?
Sure. So there, I have to give lots of credit to Scapular Wheat 87, a moderator and a friend of mine. We were having talks about, I actually had talks with your husband, with Jolts Dude, Moxie, Killer Six, numerous different people, and what the common theme is, what do you bring into the table that is different from someone else? And one of the things is that it is really weird being, unusual being a physician streamer. And I was talking with Scapular Wheat. I was like, where do I fit in? Like, what can I offer? And I felt that we felt that it might be interesting to help to put some other people on a pedestal, and to showcase what makes these other streamers tick, and what their backstories are. And I felt like we have had some of that to an extent in Twitch previously, but it's usually mostly about the game and the mechanics. While there might be some of the talk there, this is mostly on the other streamer. We are also going to have moderators on the show, by the way, because I feel that they are so highly undervalued. And to get into their backstory, what they did before streaming, why they got into streaming, and why they are, developing as how they are developing. And I would have to say we are only through the second episode, but those 2 episodes were probably my favorite 2 hours worth of streaming. And if you notice, though, what I feel like I can offer that is very different from other streamers is kind of the path that I took to help me to overcome stuttering, to transition from medical practice into pharmaceuticals. It's the same roadmap that works over and over again. And I feel like I can play the game fairly well, and I can share some of this information with Twitch. And I ultimately think that's what makes me different. And Scapular Wheat, he also named it House Calls with Haterz, by the way. Mine was my first name was like Meetings with Haterz or something of that nature, but he liked the alliteration of the House Calls with Haterz, so it is now branded that way, and that's how it's going to be in the future. And I am hoping that we can probably get 3 or so a month, maybe maybe up to a month, depending on, because I want it to last and not to run out of people. But we have so many streamers.
Yes.
I want to get more famous ones, some that you might not know, get some moderators there that I know work their tails off for seemingly getting nothing back. Seemingly is the key up point there. But yeah, it's to really showcase what other people are doing, and I just think that it's really interesting, and it really provides lots of community value that you won't get somewhere else.
I agree. I love that community feeling about it, and I'm excited that you're doing more of them. As we come to a close, one thing that I think is really important that I really would love to hear from you about is, because, of course, the podcast is called Wake Up with Gratitude, and you talked a little about your attitude, how you shifted it to being grateful for what you do have as opposed to what you don't have. Can you share a little bit about maybe some of the things you do on a daily or a weekly basis that help you have a gratitude practice?
Sure, it's actually quite simple, but yet very effective. This was actually through seeing like a therapist in the past to help me to overcome stuttering, where having it written down what you are grateful for in print every single day, just kind of having it there, because once you have a pattern of negative thinking, you automatically go into that pattern. You need something to kind of jolt you out of it, so to speak. If you have something that is with you all the time, that is maybe by your nightstand, that says, these are the top 10 things I am grateful for, or maybe you will stick it on your bathroom mirror. I don't know, like anything at all, where it's right in front of your face. And instead of waking up and saying, oh gosh, I have to give a speech and this is going to be so difficult, looking at that helps me get in the mindset of, wait a minute, like, you have an excellent life. You have lots of things that you should be happy about. And it just gets the perspective over and over again. It sounds really, really simple, but it is so hard making that a habit. To do that. And it's so simple just to slip back into previous patterns. The other thing that I keep handy is the Amy Morin book, and I always have it with me. One of the best parts about that book is that there are 13 chapters for the 13 things that mentally strong people don't do. And at the end of every single chapter, there's a nifty little summary of what is useful for your thought process and what is not useful. And once I kind of pick up on that I am having some kind of like a negative thinking pattern, or I am doing something that's just a waste of energy or is not useful, pop it open, get back in your center and think, well, yeah, I'm not really doing this. I'm not really following this, and you're not maximizing your happiness. So to boil it down, having like a little note system that just kind of plops it like right in front of your face. But as easy as it is, it takes time and practice to make that habit.
I love it though, because isn't that like with anything? To me, the reason I say it's a gratitude practice is because we are always practicing. So I love what you shared. That's a simple thing that we can do. And yes, it's easy not to do, but it's an easy thing to take action on. It's not going to take us a lot of time. And it is a great way to remind ourselves. So I have loved our time together. what is the best way for us to connect with, I guess, haters is the one we're going to be connecting with online. So where do we find you, my friend?
Sure. The simplest way is going into my Twitch page, HaterzMD. There you will find Twitter, my haters email, Discord, all of my socials there. YouTube is also there. That's the absolute simplest way. DMing me on Twitter or Discord. Very, very simple, and I'll get back to you quickly.
That's great. And we will post all the links with the video and with the podcast, but it's Haterz with a Z. So HaterzMD. So you go to twitch.tv and then you /Haterz with a Z MD, and you can find all the links there. My friend, I have absolutely adored our time together. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for letting us learn a little bit about Christian, also about Haterz and how that all comes together. You really brought together all of the questions that I'd had about you before we did the podcast in such a beautiful way. And I really appreciate all the things that you shared, the resources you shared. I will definitely include the book in the list, of course, when we share the podcast and video as well. So thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much, Julie. This was an absolute pleasure. The honor is mine.